Hey, Craig.
Yo, what's happening, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right.
So, Craig, this is what I was thinking, right? So, we do like an interview style thing where you're just telling your story. It's like interview style, and I'm thinking like an area where it's almost like like some of those documentaries where the spotlight's on you, but the room's kind of dark.
Documentary film is just like any other film. There's drama, there's emotion, there's, you know what I mean, ups and downs. There's something that pushes you on the edge of the seat. There's an exciting incident. There's something that's going to get people's attention. That's going to be like, wow, what's going to happen next?
So yeah, that's the other thing, yeah, because we got to go over that as far as what we're gonna call this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I had names: the autobiography of Craig Scott, the life and times of Craig Scott. Can a nigga do Shakespeare?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it that though.
Listen, hey, Tim, that's what we're gonna call it. That's gonna be the name of the film.
I love
Can
it.
a nigga do Shakespeare?
Hello, my name is Timothy McCain from Conversations with Tim McCain, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing actor, activist, militant, and ex-con Craig Scott, who 26 years ago was convicted of conspiracy to rob banks to finance his entertainment company. Today, I'll be interviewing him in this ring to discuss his art, his life, and his struggles, as well as his preparation for his next fight.
All the world's a stage, and the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and entrances. I wonder, will I be allowed to exit and enter on the proverbial prestigious stage of the international, royal, grand, only the best players perform here, Shakespearean theater? Will I be considered such a man or woman? But before doing so, I have to answer that most perplexing question. It's a question that's never spoken out loud or asked in proper company, of course, but a question nonetheless. Can a nigga do Shakespeare?
You say growing up in the inner city can give you insight into playing Shakespeare. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, Shakespeare is about human beings experiencing human life. Maya Angelou, she had a saying, if it's human, it's no stranger to me. So these scenarios that Shakespeare describes, like, they play out in inner cities all over the world. For instance, like Macbeth, Julius Caesar, Romeo and Juliet. These stories play out in hoods all over America.
Macbeth, he wants to kill the king. He wants to kill the king so that he can become the king. Now, this is something we see all too often in the inner cities. You know, a brother, he wants to be the new king of the block. So his plan is to kill the old king. Now, before he rolls up and slides on his victim, he gets high. He does this by downing some pills or drowning himself in his favorite drink. After this, the pills take over. The drink takes over. and he starts seeing things. He starts seeing things that aren't there. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me in the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of all the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. Oh, there's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one-half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abused the curtain's sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel the wolf, who howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace, with Turquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Shh. Thou sure and firm-set earth, hear not my steps which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time, which now suits with it. Whiles I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. I go. And it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
You use the hood experience as an example to convey Shakespeare. Do you not believe that black middle-class actors can relate?
No, I'm not saying that. It's just that Shakespeare describes and talks about wars and violence and revenge. And stuff like that doesn't really happen too often, at least not directly, in middle-class black neighborhoods, right?
That's true.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So like the poverty and the lack of opportunities in the inner cities, that's what makes a cutthroat life experience more likely. And that's what Shakespeare writes about, the harder side of life.
So did Shakespeare write about anything else?
Yeah, of course. He wrote about love and making love. Now, that's a subject matter that no matter what your background, any black person can relate to that. Like, what black man don't love the ladies, right?
I don't know one.
Exactly. So there's a bunch of poems and sonnets that Shakespeare wrote that expresses that.
I think that God, sitting alone one day in a cold, dark, unmade universe, looked inside himself and found the softest, sweetest, most loving part of himself. And he brought it forward, and it shined so bright. And when he looked upon it, I think he would have said these words: "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. And sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is its gold complexion dimmed, and fair from fair sometimes decline. by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag, though wondrous in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
So, Craig, tell me about your birth.
My birth. Well, I always say I was born dead. I was born dead on January 12th, 1970. Clear. Basically, my heart wasn't functioning normally. To kind of put it simply, I came out of my mother's womb having heart attacks.
Clear. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Years later after I was born, we were talking over the phone while I was in prison. And she was telling me that they had to use these like tiny defibrillators to revive me. And they had to like do it twice. So I was like, damn, I died 2 times? You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And so, it was real rough. It was so rough that my grandmother told her to kind of prepare herself for me not coming home. Betty, you better prepare yourself for him not making it home. I shared this story with this Mexican dude when I was in prison, and he told me some weird shit. He said, yeah, each time they revived you, you were given an angel. So basically, it was saying that when I was born, I was given 2 angels. Yeah.
So wait, do you believe that's how you survived?
I mean, something kept me alive. So I'll go with the angel story.
So how was your childhood?
My childhood. Well, other than going back and forth to the hospital because of my heart problems. Basically, I was raised with 3 of my 4 siblings. And my mom and my stepfather, they were basically, working class people. My stepdad, he worked a good job, but he was what I call a weekend alcoholic. Yeah, he would get drunk on the weekends and stuff like that. And that caused a lot of problems because it got in the way of him being able to provide for us financially. Plus, with the drinking, came the violence as well. So because of that, we had to move a lot. Ducking eviction notices, utilities being turned off, the lights being turned off. Damn. So I went through a whole lot of that. And matter of fact, I remember one of the last times that we had to move because, the lights were out, we ended up moving in with my grandma. And actually that wound up being like a job, kind of like a highlight of my childhood because, living with grandma, it was more stable. It was better.
I want you to talk about school. For people who know you now, you're intellectual, you're gifted in the arts. What was school like for you as a child?
I hated it. Yep. When I was middle school, was my worst time ever. Like I said, because of the poverty, because of the lack of money, I'm going to school. I don't have the clothes, I don't have the gear, so I'm getting joned on, joked about, all of that. What they call bullying today.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't know that's what, in my time, person had to put their hands on you to be considered a bully. You know what I mean? But now, people just make verbal threats.
Social media threats.
Right. That's bullying. So yeah, I had to, I went through all of that. So they had a rule, I think back in the day, like once you reach the age of 16, you could drop out. And that's exactly what I was planning to do. I was going to drop out 16, I guess get a job or whatever. The whole thing was just to get out of school. But as fate would have it, I'm in a music class one day, and the music teacher tells us that the Baltimore School for the Arts is having an after-school program where they're going to train you and teach you in the various arts. So I'm like, Baltimore School for the Arts. So at that time there was this TV show on called Fame. I said, oh shit, that's like Fame. There's an after-school program called Twigs here at Fame in Baltimore City. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I might like being at a place like that. So I'm going through my mind like, man, I can't sing. You know what I mean? I can't dance really, but even if I could dance, I wasn't going to be wearing any tights. Like
No
that
tights.
Nah. I was like Leroy on Fame. Like, nah, I don't wear no tights.
Okay.
So I can't paint, I can't draw. So I'm literally going through this list as I'm sitting in the class. So the last thing that was there was acting. I said, maybe I could act. Never done that either. But I remember that same day, I leave school, I go home, and I write out what I would later find out is called a monologue. I write out a monologue, and the monologue is about this guy who's basically kind of like down on his luck, and he's at a job interview, and he's trying to get a job. I need a job. And the interviewer, basically he's kind of telling him that he's not gonna get the job, so he kind of goes off. You're not gonna hire me? So I write this out, I memorize it, and I act it. I act it out. So I tell my mom, I say, listen, Mom, I'm gonna audition for the School for the Arts. So, back in the day, Mom's like, you ain't gonna go out here and embarrassing me. Let me see if you know what you're doing. So I remember we was living in this rinky-dink apartment, like in the attic of this basement. It's a building. And she had this pull-out bed. She had this pull-out bed, couch thing, and she asked me to, basically sit in front of her to do this monologue. And so I sat in the chair, almost, like the one I'm sitting in now. And I performed the piece. And after the piece was over, it's all right. She liked it. It was good enough. I passed the test.
Okay.
So she allowed me to go and do the audition. So I go downtown to School for the Arts, and there was this white chick there, Amy. Never forget her, Amy Ertwine. Probably one of the first white chicks I ever had any interaction with. Growing up in Baltimore City, it wasn't very integrated.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So she's, trying to get everybody relaxed. Just relax. So we go in, you go through these doors, and we walk in this spot, and it's this big, almost like ballroom type place where we have to do this audition. So it's like 3 people sitting at a desk, two white guys and a black woman. And so I sit down, and so they ask me, they say, oh, what piece are you gonna do for the audition? So I tell them, yeah, I'm gonna do something that I wrote. Oh, hell no. So come to find out, later on, I find out like this is a no-no. Like you're not supposed to do that.
Why?
Yeah, this is their rules. Like if you're gonna do audition, you have to do audition based on some established writer or script or whatever. Like you don't bring your own thing. But I don't know that. So I do the piece. And so I do the piece, and I go home, and I think maybe almost like a month or 2 later, I get a letter in the mail, and they accepted me into the program. So once they accepted me into the program, that's what basically kept me in school. Yep, I made it through my middle school year basically because I had that to look forward to, after school.
So what were your experiences like at the Baltimore School of the Arts as an artist as well as a person?
I'm gonna tell you honestly, like that was, the 4 years there were like probably the best years of my life. Yep. It was just so different. You know what I mean? The social pressure to, dress well and all of that was off. So that was a good thing. But just being around other kids who were there for their talent and in the arts and all of that, it was just a whole different thing. So while I was there, I would meet Tupac Shakur, Jada Pinkett, Josh Charles. These, of course, at that time, they were just kids in the school, with me. But I'm gonna say for the record, you know what I'm saying, I taught them all everything they know. I just want to put that out there. I was the upperclassman, and they were the lowerclassmen watching me do my thing, and they, you know what I'm saying?
So they took notes from you.
Right.
So
I'm
we know
gonna
it's
just put it out there.
With Jada Pinkett,
Right,
all the movies.
all of them, right.
They put a little.
Yeah. Just want to put that out there. You know what I mean? Because matter of fact, because like me and Pac kind of had an interesting thing, which I didn't really catch on to, but like everything I did, he would do or try to do. I mean, like all the way to like if I was with a chick or he thought I was with a chick, he tried to get with the chick. I remember we did a performance one time and I took my shirt off during the performance. How does it feel? So then when he does his performance, now he wants to take his shirt off. Ooh, baby, don't. You know what I'm saying? So then later on in life, I get locked up and he want to get locked up. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was job kind of, stealing my stilo.
Little brother, big brother.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But without saying it, you know what I mean? Interesting. But interesting thing also happened with him. Now, the Baltimore School for the Arts is a school with artists.
Right.
So there were like no fights at this school. That just it just didn't happen. Except with Tupac Shakur. Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all how it really went down. So I come outside, after school, but I can tell, something's going down, but ain't nobody saying nothing to me. They not letting me know, but then I start asking like, yo, what the hell is going on? Yo, they bringing somebody down here to fight Tupac. I'm like, fight Tupac, what the hell? So sure enough, I look up the street and I see these dudes and they pointing down and they coming down. So they sent one dude come down, right? The guy walks down, he walks up to Pac. He says, who's Tupac? And Tupac stepped up. He said, I'm Tupac. So the dude swung on him. Pow! The dude popped Tupac to pop him back. So they rumbling, right? I said, oh, so we know it's man on man. And everything was all right until some other guys started to jump in. And I'm gonna keep it 100. The first person to jump in it to help him was this white dude. My man, Michael German, white dude, upperclassman. He come in, he grabbed my, I said, oh shit. So then my man Randy jump in it. I said, oh man, Randy's girlfriend get to scream, oh Randy, oh my God. I said, man, I got to get in this joint. So then I get in, we get the rumbling, tussling and all this sort of type of shit. Boom. So then the security people come, they break out, they run out, woo, woo, woo. So we there, like, yo, man, woo. So Pac, he go, I look up, he's standing on the damn front of the class, tongue kissing some chick. Come to find out that's what the whole fight is about.
And say these wounds I had on Tupac's day, old men forget, yet all shall be forgot. But he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Michael German, Randy Dixon, Craig Scott, and Talbot, Salisbury, and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Tupac Shakur shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile. This day shall gentle his condition, and gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Tupac's day.
So like that was the only fight that was ever happened that I knew about in the school, and it was behind this brother. But that dealing with him, we had a lot of great conversations. Pac was like way ahead of his time. You know what I mean? Pac was telling me about the Black Panthers, about the BLA, and and what's interesting is those conversations would have an impact on me later on, way later on in life. But it was definitely a pleasure, knowing him, teaching him. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, it was nice. Me and Jada, I'll never forget. We did a workshop together, and listen, she was always very talented, but it was almost a thing of like who could get more emotional. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm doing my thing, so now she's doing her thing, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, hold up, she's trying to upstage me, you know what I mean? So now I got to go even deeper, you know what I mean? So it wound up being a good thing because we would end up, pushing each other. You follow me? So so that was the synergy. Like we bounced off of each other, we learned from each other. And so I contributed to her learning. She contributed to mine. It was beautiful. So to find out later on in life that they would become what they would become was great.
Yes, amazing. So going from Baltimore, where you were a student, and transitioning to college, what was that experience?
Oh, yeah. Boston University. Let me talk about BU. BU gets the gas face. It ain't gonna be good. Yeah. So, interestingly, I had to audition again in order to get into that college, and they accepted me. So, I think it was at the end of my first year.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, Russell G. Jones, he became an established actor. Shout out to him as well. He gave me a book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X.
Great book.
Great book. And I'm gonna tell you, throughout all high school, this was the first novel-length book that I actually read from beginning to end. I had never done that before. And it changed everything. It just changed my whole perspective. It changed my whole attitude about things. And that's what got me on that Black militant Black consciousness, Pan-Africanist path.
What about that book drove that in you, that inspired you to?
Like Malcolm, I think because one, he grew up in a similar social economic situation. Like he was also went through a lot of bouts of poverty, and he just started out in a way that I started, and he just began to shed light on a social concepts and social dynamics that I wasn't aware of, but yet I was being affected by, and that's what he made me aware of that. Like, okay, this is why this is happening. This is why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing and seeing what I'm seeing. So he kind of connected the dots, for me. And also he introduced me to the Nation of Islam. I had never heard of that before. I didn't know anything about that. So when I went back to school the second year, I became very politically active on the campus. So much so that I was like a co-founder of this group we started called Men of the Stolen Legacy. We called it Muscle for short. And basically we would tutor kids on the weekend, and we would bring in a lot of almost like black radical thinkers on the campus. We brought in Kwame Ture, who was formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, Bobby Seale. We were real heavy in the protests about divestiture during the Nelson Mandela days. He was locked up, and we were trying to get Boston University to divest their investments in South Africa. Wow. So we had rallies about that. So I was, I was involved. You know what I mean? Yeah, I was involved. And that political activism on the campus got me kicked out. Basically, yeah.
I want to go back to that time where you first read Malcolm X and you were able to discover things like the Nation of Islam. Do you feel like the school system did a good enough job teaching you Black history before?
Oh, hell no. That was one of the things that we were protesting. Not only were we dealing with the divestiture issue, but we were trying to push Black history, Black studies to become a part of the basic curriculum for the university.
What was taught about Black history?
Nothing. At the time that we were coming up, nothing. You just didn't have anything dedicated to, okay, well, let's focus on the, Black Americans and what they contributed and what they went through. That wasn't, no. You had American history and world history, and both of them were about whites in America and whites in Europe. And if you ever had any talk about Africa or Asia, it was just about how Europe interacted with those civilizations, and that was it. Yeah, so you had to literally go and kind of do your own study. You had to find Sheikh Anta Diop and Ivan Van Sertima and all of those Black scholars in order to find out about quote unquote Black history. So once we became conscious of those things, then we were like, listen, man, this needs to be a part of the overall education. So we were pushing for that, involved in that, and it was just too much for them. You know what I mean? To the administration, and I was raising hell even in the theater department. I was off the chain. You know what I mean? Any sign of any kind of prejudice, whatever, I was on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was being too disruptive. So all of a sudden, the scholarship money wasn't there anymore.
BU gets the gas face.
And it wasn't because of the grades. I was like one of the top students. You know what I mean? So I had the grades, but it is what it is. It was what it was. You know what I mean? So BU gets the gas face for that one. Yeah.
So talk about meeting and interacting with the great Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture.
Kwame Ture. Oh yeah. My first encounter with Kwame Ture was very embarrassing. Yeah. So Kwame is giving a lecture at another college. So we go to the to that campus. I forget the name of the college. We go to that campus, and there are people protesting there. So he comes out, and when he comes out on stage, some people stand up. They got the Israeli flags up. They've got all these little signs and placards. So I'm like, wow, this is deep. This is when I'm realizing, that he's like this controversial figure. So he comes out and he's speaking in his little accent or whatever. And so after the lecture was over, the group because the Men of the Stolen Legacy, we went to the lecture as the group. So we helped with his security. So we escorted him out of the auditorium, and we go into this little room. So we get to actually, talk to him, one-on-one. So we tell him about our organization, Men of the Stolen Legacy. He said, "Oh, Men of the Stolen Legacy, yeah, that was a very good book. What do you think about the book?" So we looking at each other, and that's when we were realizing that out of all of us, like none of us had read the book. None of us. So we had to admit to him, we didn't read the book. So
what was his reaction?
So he goes, "How in the world do you call yourselves the Men of the Stolen Legacy and you've never read the book, The Stolen Legacy?" So we were embarrassed, you know what I mean? So, that was my introduction to Kwame Ture. So of course, eventually we would read the book. But I would meet him a few more times. A matter of fact, when I went back to Baltimore, he would lecture at Morgan State University. So I met him there again. So he was powerful. Yeah, real powerful.
Bobby Seale.
Bobby Seale. Oh yeah, Bobby Seale. When we brought Bobby Seale in, he was giving us all of the war stories. You know what I mean? And he gave a very good lecture. He kind of threw us off with the cookbook. Yeah, because
what?
we didn't know that.
Wait,
yeah.
a cookbook?
Yeah. After he gave his spiel about the history of the Black Panther Party and different events that happened, he kind of started plugging his cookbook. He had a cookbook. I didn't know. We didn't know about the cookbook. So that was interesting. But he was real good, real cool. Learned a lot from him as well. You know what I mean? But that was the only time that I interacted with Bobby Seale.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, he was telling us the story that impressed me the most was when he was talking about the sisters that were in the Black Panther Party and how they was carrying them pistols up under their skirts and all of that. Like they were, the sisters was, they was thorough too. You know what I mean? So that was real inspiring to hear. Yeah.
The creation of Men of a Stolen Legacy. How did that conception?
We were beefing with the black fraternity on the campus, so we kind of try to come up with our own thing.
What was the beef about?
They was, they was bougie. You know what I'm saying? We didn't think that they were pro-black. You know what I mean? We had a real bad concept about black fraternities. And so as a response to that, we came up with Men of the Stolen Legacy. And we felt as though our group was the group for the black militants, the black conscious brothers, you know what I mean? Where they were, they was sliding off with the white chicks and they were, doing all the stuff that at that time we considered as being, not pro-black. Yeah. So that's how we, came up with that. Well, that's why I think we banded together and we, came up with that group.
What are your thoughts on black fraternities now? Have they changed over the years?
Oh, yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, honestly, because of because of what we were doing, things like that, and I'm pretty sure that other brothers on other campuses were doing a similar thing. I think that it sort of forced them to have to, incorporate that into their program, and they did. You know what I mean? I think those fraternities became much more pro-black conscious, because like now, a lot of those fraternities, they just as militant as what we were, kicking back then. So once again, that synergy, that back and forth, you know what I mean? And, learning from each other. And so because I've met a lot of brothers that were, shout out to the Omegas, you know what I mean? These dudes, pretty conscious, you know what I mean? So yeah, over time, I think it definitely went in that direction.
Men of a Stolen Legacy, what are some of the things that you guys did outside of going against the system at Boston University?
Well, our biggest thing was tutoring. Like the kids out of Roxbury. Roxbury is the community where basically, because Boston was even then segregated, and Roxbury was one of those parts of the cities where most of the blacks in Boston lived. So we would have the kids; they would come to a campus. I forget the name of this campus. And we would teach there, and then I myself would end up working at a community center in Roxbury and interacting with the kids there. They brought me in to teach some of the kids acting, and we would do projects and stuff like that. So yeah, we were very, very much involved in trying to educate black kids.
Were you able to teach activism through your acting to those kids?
I hadn't made that connection yet.
Okay.
I made that connection later on when I went back to Baltimore, where I began to fuse my acting with my activism. Because for a long time, I kind of didn't see them, I didn't see how they connected.
Really?
Yeah. I was, because, and I think a lot of that also came from the fact that I joined the Nation of Islam. And the Nation of Islam was very militant, very religious. So, acting wasn't something that, you would associate with that. So yeah, for a while I just didn't, see them as being something, being the same.
Do you believe that one of the reasons why you didn't see activism the same is because maybe the biggest actors, the biggest black actors, might not have been as vocal in their activism?
Definitely. Like, in my time, you couldn't really point to a black actor that was also, you would consider militant. You know what I mean?
They were outspoken, maybe. Like
Right.
Belafonte.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. Belafonte wasn't in my era. I would have to read about him.
True.
Denzel, Wesley Snipes. Who else was coming up around that time? Then, of course, the black comedians, things like that. But I'm gonna tell you, Spike Lee. Now, Spike helped me make that transition too. School Days, Do the Right Thing.
Excellent.
Now I'm seeing okay, you can actually use art to highlight these social and political issues. So he was one that kind of opened my eyes to that as well. Yeah.
Interesting. And what was your very first tie-in with acting and activism as a play?
That's the basis of this film.
Can a nigga do Shakespeare?
I wrote it as a one-act play, and it was basically about a young black man who wanted to audition for this very prestigious Shakespearean theater. And the person conducting the interview, of course, is this sort of snobbish, white guy. And so they get into, a back and forth conflict with each other.
Can a nigga comprehend the ideas, histories, complexities? Can he relate to the grandeur of style and culture? And even if he could, will his black skin and bulbous features get in the way? I mean, can a nigga even speak Shakespearean words? Can he force his lips to pronounce such words as thee, thou, thine, and hence? Certainly all that street lingo and jive isn't proper preparation. No kings, queens, princes, or aristocrats are hanging out on street corners pouring one out. So how could he or she even relate? That is the question. Can a nigga do Shakespeare? And am I that nigga? Please, give me an opportunity to give you my answer.
As the play is going about, the black actor is demonstrating how the black experience growing up in the inner city could actually give you some insight on how to perform Shakespeare. Yeah, you know what I mean? And so, so I was incorporating different scenarios that you might witness or you might go through coming up as a black person in the inner city and incorporating that into the Shakespearean plays and monologues. So that was, but in the course of that, I'm also pushing my pro-black situation. I'm paying homage to Malcolm and Martin and Farrakhan and, the whole 9 yards. It was off the chain.
What was the reviews like performing the first play activism?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the audience loved it. Yay! And the second time that we performed it, we were putting up placards and posters about the play. So the local news, see these placards, can a nigga do Shakespeare? They like, wait, what the hell? Hey, what do you think about this title, Can a Nigga Do Shakespeare? So they stopping people on the street, hey, what do you think about this play, Can a Nigga Do Shakespeare? And to my pride, there was this older black woman and there was this younger black man. And they got it. They had never seen the play, but they understood just from the title what it was that I was trying to do and what I was trying to convey. So for the most part, really, the response was, very positive. Yeah! The establishment didn't respond to it very well. Some people wanted to protest the play. Hell no, he must go. Hell no, he must go. Matthew's church people, black church leaders, whatever, they didn't, think that it was, to this day, I don't really know what they were beefing about. But to the credit of the director of Morgan State University's theater program, he has sat down with them and told them, listen, come see the play first, then make your decision on whether you want to, protest this thing. And so they came to see it, and once they saw it, they changed their whole perspective. Oh, I get it. They never sat down with me though. I'm still beefing with them about that. You know what I mean? But yeah, they changed their whole perspective, about what it was that we were trying to do.
Was this when you were at Boston University, or when?
Oh no, this is after. But Boston University already kicked me out. Throw the bum out. Yeah, I was back home. That was why I was back in Baltimore, because they had kicked me out of Boston University. Yeah.
Going back, when you got kicked out of Boston University for your activism, for standing on what you believed in, what were you going through during that time period?
Honestly, at that time, before I was kicked, before they cut my money off, throw the bum out. I was, doing just as well as any other student on the, campus. I had a little job at a little restaurant or whatever. So I was basically an artist. I was an artist training. I was training to be an artist, and that was my life as a student and as an artist. So it didn't become disruptive until they cut the money off.
Right.
Now I'm back
to ground zero,
experiencing what I did when I was a kid. I'm poor again. You follow me? Absolutely. Yeah, man. It got down to I would literally have to shoplift chocolate chip cookies and peanut butter Twix. Is what I was literally eating.
Those are good.
Yeah, they're good, but when you gotta, survive off of them things, you know what I mean? So that's like how low it got for me, when they did that. So that's why it's something that I want to make sure that people know that happened, so that I hope that current administrations, both at Boston University and other universities, don't have such a violent reaction to black students when they are becoming, militant and political, because we have every right to express that political expression as anybody else.
As anyone else.
You follow what I'm saying? In other words, that's, you chill out. You know what I mean? That's a part of the political spectrum.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when did you join the Nation of Islam?
When I got back to Baltimore, they had a bookstore, and I visited the bookstore, and they started teaching me things, and they conducted their services at upstairs of that bookstore. So I'm going to their meetings. But what made me join is Dr. Khalid Muhammad came to the city, and he was going to conduct what they call the Fruit of Islam's training. This is the men, they get together for the militant training. So he was going to come in, and so people from different cities or whatever, they all came. So I wasn't a member yet, so they had all of the, new people sit in the front row. So Khalid, man, was this dark-skinned, bald, militant, shiny. So he comes in with the black fatigues, with the black beret, and he's walking back and forth, pacing, doing his little speech. So he comes in, and he's defending Minister Farrakhan because there's death threats against Farrakhan and all this sort of shit. So Khalid goes, if they put a hand on Minister Louis Farrakhan, we're gonna kill everything white that's in sight that ain't right. Shit, when he said that, I say, hey man, this is what I gotta be. Just sign me up. So that's what made me, basically join the Nation of Islam. And that's, from there, that's I started functioning in that organization.
What was your experiences like in NOI?
Overall, it was very good. I mean, I learned so much, man. I learned discipline. I learned about military tactics and concepts. I learned about organization, security. So really, I've really got a lot of my militant training. In other words, like I had the militant attitude, but I didn't have the training. That's where I got that.
And you ultimately left NOI because you believed they weren't radical enough.
Right. Now, that was the thing I also learned, is that the Nation of Islam, for the most part, is a religious organization. It wasn't really a political organization. And I was looking for a political organization.
More so than religious.
Right.
Okay.
So functioning, because I think I functioned in it for about 2 years. And after, 2 years, I did security for the Minister Farrakhan and met a lot of, top-ranked people in that organization. But I basically began to understand that it wasn't a militant political organization. So that's what made me, move on. And once I left there, that's when what Pac taught me in high school started clicking. Right.
So leaving NOI, you in a sense started your own organization again. Is that correct?
Well, I would say we basically adopted the philosophy of the Black Liberation Army, which Assata Shakur was a part of, and Afeni Shakur and
Tupac's mother.
Right, Matula and all the them brothers, and so I would say that's what we did. We kind of developed what they call a cell based on that philosophy. And that philosophy was basically, they call it reappropriation. Reappropriation means you go into a white bank, rob the bank, take that money, and you use that money in order to push a pro-Black agenda in your community. Yeah, that was pretty much what I was doing.
How successful would you say your operations were?
Oh, very successful.
Okay,
very successful. Man, what? I became damn near professional at this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I had some training. That we didn't really have a lot, but I had enough to be able to put operations together, execute those operations, and pull them off, and to and basically we were able to do it in a way where no one was hurt, either them or ourselves.
How were you able to do that?
Because one, that discipline, you know what I mean? And the whole idea was, listen, our thing was to go in and get the money. We weren't there to rob the people, we were there to rob the bank. And that's what we did, you know what I mean? And we trained, we practiced, and we were prepared. So yeah, we were able to carry out a lot of successful operations, if you will. Yeah. And
then you had some new recruits.
Well, not even so much that they were new recruits, but what happened was, I think I allowed an operation to happen without me being present. And ironically, that would wind up being a bad decision. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're doing something and you think you're doing a good thing. Because, I was under a lot of, pressure. Of course, my wife didn't want me to, continue in that direction. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not going to do this anymore. And that wound up being not a good thing to do. It wasn't a wise thing to do, because these brothers would basically have to go on an operation without me, and I had more experience
than they did.
And so I think that's really kind of, at the end of the day, it was my fault. You know what I mean? I either should have made sure that it wasn't going to happen, or if I knew that it was going to happen, I should have been there.
But did someone rat you out? Is that what happened?
Well, that came later.
Okay.
Basically, we got caught. in that operation. But once we got caught, the individual started telling the federal government about other operations that they didn't even know about. Yeah. So that's where that came in. Yeah.
And what was that like going through that trial period?
I was stressed. I lost all my hair. My hair was already receding, and then I just lost all my hair. You know what I mean? Because now you are in direct confrontation with the federal government. This is these this is the powers that be. It says United States of America versus Craig Scott. And so they're bringing the full weight and power of the government on us. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're going through it.
How did it impact your family?
Destroyed it. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It destroyed it. There was no way that I would be able to maintain a marriage and a family doing 52 years in prison, because that's what I would end up getting. Even as a first-time offender. So, yeah, it's interesting, 'cause just before we sat down to do this interview, my daughter called me. So it just brought that up about the fact that I wasn't in her life and all the trauma that caused her and the pain and so it was a terrible sacrifice, no question.
It's not until you face that darkest moment, that moment laying on that bunk inside of that cement and steel cell, contemplating that this will be my life for the next 52 years. Not until that moment, that dark moment, that's when I understood the words of Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take up arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing in them. To die, to sleep no more.
People might find this very ironic, but Donald Trump got me out of jail. We are gonna make America great again.
45?
45.
Okay.
Donald Trump got the black militant dude out of jail. What happened was, we were really expecting Barack Obama to be the one that would make the systemic changes in the laws that we needed in order to get out. Because the laws were, crazy.
Right.
I mean, first-time offenders were getting 50, 60 years.
Ridiculous.
It was just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So when Obama came into office,
First black president.
Black president, he gonna change this situation. He didn't. So, just to make a long story short. So then Donald Trump gets into office. So there was rumors going on that, man, Donald Trump talking about, trying to release people out of jail. Whatever. I don't know, we'll see. Sure enough, he put the pressure on the Republicans in the Congress and the Senate to present him with some laws that would change the criminal justice sentencing laws that were on the books, and he did. We are gonna make America great again.
He did the same thing for Angela Stanton King as well, I believe.
Well, no, what happened was, he did both.
Okay.
Because Donald wanted to outshine Barack. So he did the clemencies that Barack did, because that's what Barack did. He basically did individual clemencies.
Okay.
And that was our kind of beef with his approach. Like, okay, this is a systemic problem.
Right.
But you're using kind of anecdotal individual solutions. So you're not really getting at the root of this thing. So Donald kind of did both. He did the pardons and the clemencies, and he got Congress to actually change the laws And so the main law that was keeping me in prison was this law called, it was 18 U.S.C. 924C, the use of a firearm in the commission of a crime of violence. And they were using that to basically, they could give you 20 years back to back and just stack them, and you'd have to serve 20 years after 20 years after 20.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So he changes the law, but the problem was he didn't make it retroactive, meaning those people who were already in prison under those draconian laws, they couldn't get the benefit of that change.
Interesting.
So it took a liberal judge, in my case. Shout out Judge Blake. Thank you, Catherine Blake out of Baltimore District Court. Because she was already saying, like 2 years ahead of time, before these laws were changed, she was already saying that, listen, these guys got too much time, for not only for the crime that they committed, but also she looked at our conduct while we were in prison, and she was like, it was too much. But there was no law that would permit her to give us the release. So that law changed, and boom, she took advantage of it, and that's
The rest is history. So it took the extreme.
yeah. It took the extreme right and the extreme left to get the radical black man out of prison. It's just the weirdest. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. But that's why I'm able to be here right now.
Through your whole experience, you know what it takes to be an activist. What does it take if someone wants to be an activist like you?
Well, if you want to be a black militant activist like myself, what it takes is a healthy hatred of the white man. Yeah, you got to hate the white man. The goddamn white man. Yeah, ain't no question about that. That's,
word.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and it's a crude way of basically saying that you have to have a very healthy dislike for white supremacy in that whole system. The goddamn white man. You follow? And they don't like this group, but I take my hat off to them. The Antifa, this is the whites that don't like white supremacy. That's what's driving them. These are white people, but they have a healthy hatred of white supremacy. And so they're taking radical, quote unquote, violent acts against this system. You follow me? And that was the type of, basically the type of fire that I was working with.
Based on what you went through, would you do it again?
You mean at the age that I'm now?
No.
Oh.
No, not now.
I'm gonna be 100% with you. With the attitude that I had and the concept that I had, yeah. There's no getting around it. And also seeing how things kind of ended up. Like I was sitting in prison and we watched the Freddie Gray revolt, and some kids come out of Douglas High School, and they kind of like they the ones that kind of really set it off. And when I saw that, I was like, this is what we were talking about. This is exactly what we were talking about. The substandard education that we were being subjected to in the inner cities, the unfair treatment that we were being subjected to in the inner cities, would have to be eventually responded to in a militant way before it would ever be addressed. So then that happened. And then once I got out, this thing with George Floyd, and the response that came from that, the militant, violent response that came to that, all of that shit was necessary. People don't like it, but the reality is, listen, man, if you don't show that there's a price that has to be paid for doing something wrong to me, then that wrong is going to continue to be done. Malcolm X lies before me. Trayvon Martin lies before me. Martin King lies before me.
Tamir Rice, Fred Hampton's bloodied body lies before me. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Now o'er thy wounds I do prophesy, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all parts of Italy. Blood and destruction shall be so in use, and dreadful objects so familiar that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. All pity choked with custom of foul deeds. And Caesar's spirit, raging for revenge, with Ate by his side, shall come hot from hell, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry, havoc! And let slip the dogs of war. That this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion men groaning for burial.
Keep it real. You know, you really have to dislike that system. You have to dislike that whole philosophy.
So not necessarily white people, but white ideology.
Well, I mean,
white supremacy.
you know, listen, to be honest, you know, especially in the time that I was coming up, a lot of white people was, you know, white supremacists. Now, they didn't think they were. You follow what I'm saying?
No.
Because, you know, you got this group of white folks who say, oh, I'm not in the Ku Klux Klan. I'm not burning crosses in people's lives, so I'm not a white supremacist. No, in other words, like, white supremacy is about maintaining that that terrible power dynamic that says the whites are supposed to be on top and
Everyone
the blacks
else
are supposed to be on the bottom.
Yeah.
In every social, political, economic situation. That's white supremacy. Even if you're not saying, oh, well, you know, even if you're not using the N-word, but if you are basically, you know, insisting that that dynamic is maintained, you're a white supremacist. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it wasn't such a stretch to say, you know, you got to have a hatred for white people and have a hatred for, you know, white supremacy, because a lot of white people were basically participating and perpetuating that system.
To be an activist, especially a black militant activist, talk about the love you have to have for black people and black empowerment.
Man. And that's so important, because it's that love of your people that keeps you from selling dope to them, that keeps you from robbing them. Listen, we went out our way. We would only rob white banks. You follow? Matter of fact, we robbed the white banks, took their money, and deposited them in the black bank in the city. You know what I'm saying?
The Black Robin Hood.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But that's the type of thing that's the kind of carefulness you have when you develop that kind of love for your people. You know what I mean? You just don't want to do any damage to them. You don't want to do any harm to them, because you already see that they're already harmed. So you don't want to add to that. You follow what I mean? So that's where that black love and that black pride, you know, kicked in as far as the black militant activists. Because that was something that was something that we were just not going to participate in.
when you're performing these plays, Can a Nigga Do Shakespeare? I guess my question is, when people come and see your performance, you know, whether it's of someone of a different race, right?
Right.
Do they need to say it in an acronym?
Like, can white people say the title of your movie? That's basically what you're asking. You know, that's a good question. Can a white person say, can a nigga do Shakespeare? Do they have to say, can a N-word do Shakespeare? Do they have to go that far? Let me say this, right? If the film ever gets to a movie theater and they're paying a ticket, they can say, can a nigga do Shakespeare? Yeah. If they are white producers, distributors, people that might pick the film up and help finance our situation, they can say, can a nigga do Shakespeare? Yeah, we gonna give them a pass.
I'm gonna recommend them saying CANDS.
Well, listen, NWA, niggas with attitudes.
They can say NWA.
Could white people say they could never say the whole title?
NWA.
Oh, white people have to say NWA. They could never say niggas with attitudes.
Not around me.
Okay, all right.
Not around me.
All right, so yeah, I don't know. So we might have to get. I don't know. That's a good question. I never thought about that. Can white people say, can a nigga do Shakespeare? Yeah, I don't know. We gotta think about that. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think I have a problem with it.
So what led you to have that mentality of not having the problem with it? That's interesting.
You mature. You get older, and you meet white people who don't like white people. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
no,
wow.
meaning you meet white people who don't like white supremacy.
Right.
And who are willing to put it on the line in order to stop it. So once I saw that, once I, realized that, like, man, there's some white folk that'll rob a bank in order to finance something pro-black or something anti-white supremacist. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, like, they're white revolutionaries. You follow me?
Throughout history.
You follow me? History. So once you realize that, that's when you, like, okay, well, maybe, that's, like I said, that's when you realize it's like, okay, it's some people who are really not with this shit. Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on the black bourgeoisie and the black militancy and how they could potentially work together? What are your thoughts on working together to uplift?
Well, I mean, I'm of the philosophy now that it takes every approach, from the most passive side to the most aggressive. We need everybody approach, everybody taking their little chunk out of that structure, that white supremacist structure. If, no matter how you do it, how passively you do it, or how aggressively you do it, we need the whole spectrum. So that's one thing that I think, because before, I was like, if you don't do it like me, then you ain't really about that. You know what I mean?
Down.
Yeah, you ain't that. You know what I mean? And so you mature and you understand. No, you need to attack this thing on every level because it exists on every level.
Why are we here in this ring? Why are we here in the boxing gym?
Why are we here in the boxing ring? I think that to answer the question, can a nigga do Shakespeare? The answer is no, a nigga can't, but a black man can. And I chose the boxing ring because basically the struggle, what I begin to understand is the struggle is against that nigga inside of each and every one of us. And you gotta fight it. And you gotta train. And you gotta educate yourself in order to have that fight. For so many black men and women in America, just living in America is a fight. So this is why I think that it was just apropos. It was just a proper place to be in a ring.
Ladies and gentlemen, fighting out of the red corner, weighing in at 170 pounds, from the streets of B-More, the city that bleeds. Craig the Nigger Scott. Fighting out of the blue corner, weighing in at 170 pounds, from the city of Baltimore, Maryland, the city that reads, Craig the Man Scott. Oh, the black man is coming out swinging, looking very good. Uh-oh, oh my God, the niggas got him on the ropes. Oh, he's looking bad. It's looking bad for the black man. He's fighting for his life. Oh no, the man is down. The black man is down. The nigger has knocked him down. He's gotta get back up. Get up, man. He's back. On his feet. He's on his feet. He's swinging again. Fight! Fight! What I'm fighting against is that nigger that keeps us hating one another, that nigger that keeps us afraid of doing what we know we have to do, that nigger that keeps us from keeping our responsibilities. And once we knock that out, you know what I mean? Once we knock that nigga out, then we can see the progress and we can see the success that we want.
Then we can make a real change.
Then we can make a real change.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can athletes do Shakespeare? Of course. A victor is twice itself when the achiever brings home full numbers.
Can a substitute teacher quote Shakespeare? I am that merry wanderer of the night. I jest to Auburn and make him smile, when I a fat and bean-fed horse beguile, neighing in likeness of a filly foal, and sometime lurk I in a gossip's bowl. In very likeness of a roasted crab, and when she drinks against her lips I bob, and on her withered dewlap pour the ale, the wisest aunt telling the saddest tale, and sometimes for 3-foot stool mistaketh me, then slip I from her bum, down topples she, and Taylor cries, turn into a cough, then the whole choir hold their hips and laugh, and waxen in their mirth, and knees, and swear, for a merrier hour was never wasted there. A Midsummer's Night Dream, Wonder of the Night, Shakespeare.
Can a realtor do Shakespeare?
Yes, a realtor can do Shakespeare. To whom God will, there will be the victory.
Can a product owner do Shakespeare? Yes, I can. Our remedies oft in ourselves do lie, which we ascribe to heaven. All's well that ends well.
Can a CMA do Shakespeare?
Of course. Now God be praised, that to believing souls gives light in darkness, comfort in despair.
How can I help you, fellas? Can a teacher shop owner do Shakespeare? Absolutely, you can. To be or not to be, that's the question. I would say something, man. These days, it's about to do or not to do. With all respect to Shakespeare.
No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot a shot. Coming in hot.
Can a snowboarder do Shakespeare? Of course.
Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks upon tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, but whose height be taken.
Can a Vietnam vet do Shakespeare?
I can't.
You sure?
I'm positive.
You're positive. All right. Listen, brother, I want to thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.